Today was just nonstop. Yeah. Every minute counted.
Are we ready?
Yep.
So do you want to follow the order? I'm going to make a motion to enter a public session.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're in public session. Roll call, please.
Ms. Jessica.
Here.
Mr. Nevin.
Here.
Mr. Carr.
Luke.
Oh,
Luke.
Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, no problem. Here.
Mr. Shea.
Here.
And Mr. Rod.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag, of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Comments from the public on agenda items. Just a reminder for those members of the public in attendance. It's one of two opportunities for the members of the public to comment on or inquire about agenda items. Members of the public will also have an opportunity at the end of the evening to comment on matters not formally noted on the agenda. You can always submit comments online at BOE@menands.org. Do we have anyone joining us online?
There's two people online.
Okay, anyone in person have anything? Okay, item F, approval of minutes. Could I get a resolution on the minutes for the January 8th and 29th?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District accept the minutes of the January 8th and January 29th meetings.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a communication to the board. Just a thank you note for the yearbook, and while it's not on here, Trish just handed me, this note that your spot from BOE, just like a snapshot of services that they provide for us. And a letter came with it, just saying, here's your snapshot. And that they have an annual meeting coming up on April 10th. Do you know about that? I don't know if anyone wants to go to their annual meeting on April 10th. We'll get more information about that in the future.
Well, that'll come out because they'll have their,
That's like their dinner thing, right?
the whole event, the whole thing.
Right, right.
They'll send more information about that. We'll get that.
Okay, number 2, discussion items, superintendent's reports and updates.
So after last meeting, there was a request to talk a little bit about meal counts and how they've been impacted by community eligibility. So Mrs. Moran was actually able to set up some numbers for us. So we looked at where we are at this point in the school year. So we're going to first start with breakfast. The orange line is last school year, blue line is this school year. Please keep in mind September and October were before we implemented community eligibility, and then November, December, and January show the increases that we've seen after we provided free breakfast for any and all students who would like that. They do not have to fill out an application, they do not have to apply. It's just available for any student that attends our school. So we've seen some significant increases in our breakfast counts over the course of time. I mean, September is a little bit different anyway, right? Everybody's back to school, they've got these great routines in place. In October, we tend to see a little bit of increase. But if you just look at October, November, December, and January, they were all pretty similar. So it's pretty safe to say that there has been a positive impact on the number of kids who are eating breakfast here with us at school. And then we look at lunch. Lunch is a little bit different. You know, maybe the increases aren't as dramatic as they were for breakfast, but our lunch counts have increased as well, with January topping out a little over 4,000. And the last slide for you is state aid. And this slide is around the difference that the state is going to make up in the aid. So there's only so much that we will get back from the federal government around free and reduced meals. However, the state has committed to closing that gap. So students, any student who wants to, whether they would have qualified or not, are able to get the free meals. So we will get full reimbursement on all of our meals. And at this point in time, the district will not absorb those costs. Now, as something to keep in mind is that that has to be renewed each year.
Every year.
It's on pace to be renewed this school year, but it is school year dependent. Joanne, is there anything you would add from these slides?
I mean, I think we anticipated that change, it's not crazy. Only thing I would add is that I hope that that money makes it into the 2025.
And you said right now it's right there, tracking it to be.
Right now, it's in the proposal, and hopefully it will stay there. I can't imagine there's been a lot of support for, subsidizing the remaining costs around free meals. So I don't anticipate it to go away, but until it's finalized, we'll.
There was a big push for the last 4 years to make this happen, right, statewide.
Yeah.
It'll be a huge hit for elected officials to get rid of it.
Absolutely.
Just looking at the numbers quick though, so breakfast is about half the school participation, is that what the numbers are showing? But lunch is in this month or for January, just about everyone is participating in lunch.
We have quite
Does
a
that sound
few.
about right?
Well, I wouldn't say, we still have families that have meals for their kids, just based on, particular food likes and dislikes, and some days they like the lunch or not, but we're seeing higher increase participation. And I think particularly in the area of breakfast, we always had a lot of kids who ate lunch anyway, but breakfast, I think, was one of the things that, families might have said, no, eat your sugar bar at home, but now they have the ability to come and eat that as well. And our cafeteria is pretty full in the morning, wouldn't you say, Mrs. Wiley? It's pretty full in the morning. And a lot of kids going through the lunch line, so, and that's what we want, right? It's, if kids need it, it's there, no questions asked, they order it and they're in good shape. So I think it is, it certainly achieved what we had hoped that free meals would achieve for us,
Great.
as far as picks up. The second piece that I was going to speak to the board about tonight was another area for an update around the strategic plan, and that one being restorative practices. You have a presentation? I should do this afternoon. So as you know, in our strategic plan, restorative practices is something that we have committed to training our staff in, and we have committed to implementing and really solidified that commitment through our code of conduct. So our code of conduct calls out specifically the use of restorative practices. And tonight, I just would like to update the board as to where we are in the training process, where we are with implementation, what our next steps are, and really what restorative practices mean in the bigger picture of a school. So I wanted to start just talking a little bit about the principles of restorative practices and what they are, and through this, essentially what they're not as well. So when implementing and using restorative practices in conjunction with the code of conduct, the focus is on repairing the harm rather than simply punishing the offender. Traditional discipline results in, if you do A, B occurs. If you get into a fight at school, you're suspended. If you skip class, you have detention. It's kind of this cause and effect that happens. And it's not that the consequences go away. They may be decreased based on the student's willingness to participate in restoring whatever harm has happened. It's important that student voices are included. You utilize a whole school approach. It starts with classroom-based restorative practices and it builds to building-wide. I would say from a school-wide approach, we had started some of that work with responsive classroom, or what we call net logical consequences, meaning that your consequences are directly related to whatever has occurred. It's really about incorporating practices and strategies to build student social emotional skills, right? The idea of discipline is there may be consequences that occur, but we also want to teach. And we want to improve social emotional competencies and student behavior. It's really about doing school with students instead of doing school to students. Having right and inclusive relationships across the school. No one is interested in repairing harm if they don't have relationships and care about one another. It is utilized often with traditional consequences. So if you have a student who gets into a physical altercation, typically maybe the consequence would be 5 days of suspension. If the student and family are willing to participate in restorative practices, maybe it's the restorative practices and whatever is going to happen in that vein with maybe 2 days of suspension. So it's not in replacement of traditional consequences. They're really meant to work together. Because our code of conduct does, simply put, not allow certain behaviors in school. We cannot have violent behaviors in school. We cannot have drugs or alcohol in school. You know, we have to have classrooms that are orderly where learning can occur. And the hope is, yes, we may have some traditional consequences, but we can also do the teaching and learning part with that as well. And the last bullet is the student and family must be willing to participate. If the student isn't willing to accept ownership, if the family isn't willing to come to the table, it can't happen. We can't make someone repair harm. And unfortunately, while those instances aren't frequent, they do happen, and that is when you really do lean mostly on traditional consequences. So keeping that in mind, what we have done this school year. So we have really worked hard with our staff around restorative practices principles. We've really put the focus on staff-student and student-to-student relationships and what that looks like in a restorative school. Community circles, we've spent quite a bit of time looking at that, and it's a time to build community using a circle format and getting to know each other, and then restorative conversations. And I don't have mine on me, but there are like little sentence starters that we've given to staff. Some of them wear them on their badges, because the language that you're using may not just simply come naturally, you know, and people need to practice it. They need to feel it, they need to say it, they need to understand it. And it's really looking at that connection between when this happens, these are the outcomes, it's the connected piece. So we have done a lot of that work with the focus then moving into next year, looking at restorative justice. And that is really, that restorative justice piece is where the repairing the harm comes into play. And I say that because this year our focus really was on the foundational, the ground, you know, the foundational piece of the professional learning, and then moving into next year, if we have that foundational piece in place, then we're able to look at the restorative piece. And I would say that is from a classroom-based level. From a code of conduct level, some of that work has already started. It's in our code of conduct. As administrators, we are required to follow the board adopted code of conduct. So some of that work that we've started really has started at when referrals have gotten bumped up to the administrative level. Mrs. Wiley has worked closely with our support services staff. Sometimes that involves re-entry meetings that our school counselor and our school social worker will help with. Sometimes it involves conversations between the two kids once everybody comes back with cooler heads prevailing, and working through some of those challenges. Sometimes it's more regularly scheduled meetings with a school counselor or social worker to work through some of the challenges that our students facing. So some of that is in place, I would say, at a beginning level, and then we will continue to work with staff in the classroom level, and then really try to, I would say, broaden our ability to utilize restorative justice more in partnership with our code of conduct. So this year we've been partnering with City BOCES, specifically Mrs. Witter and Mrs. Guinea. They have been down, I think, 5 or 6 times. They came for 2 of our superintendent conference days, and they spent quite a bit of time with us working through those foundational pieces. They've been down for 3 different faculty meetings to continue that work. And then they will be back on March 15th for about an hour check-in at the beginning to kind of see how it's going. And that idea that it's not a one and done, and that we're going to continue to work, see where staff is, and really hopefully prime them for the restorative justice piece moving into next school year. And that is really where we're hoping to land through that training next year, is really that restorative justice piece, and really looking at how can we repair harm within classrooms, and then also from referrals that are bumped up to administration. So the last piece, and we say this with the staff, we have a lot of initiatives going on, right? And it can feel like a lot, but one of the things I often say is that we have to be building them up all at the same time, and they're very interconnected. So restorative justice and academic achievement, if students are in classrooms, they are able to engage and learn. Restorative practices, we're hopefully going to reduce the amount of time that kids are out of classroom and partner that with repairing harm when that is done. It is a seamless, I would say, partnership with responsive classroom. This is all about kids feeling significant and belonging. We know when kids don't feel like they belong, we will see increases in student discipline. It pairs with social emotional learning. Through the course, we're hoping to build skills and relationships. And then last but not least, it partners with our DEI work. Suspension rates are something that the state is always going to be looking at and something that we should be looking at as well. And particularly at subgroups. If we are able to decrease suspension rates through the use of restorative practices, not in place of, right? If we're able to use the two together and reduce our suspension rates, therefore decrease behavior, we should see decreases in our subgroups as well. So, I think it's something, when the strategic plan was designed, it was designed in a way that all of the areas would interweave. You're not working on one at any particular time, but they all are kind of lifting at the same time. And that's what I hope to show you through this slide. Questions, thoughts, comments from the board? Answer or?
Thank you for sharing this with us, with the updates that are happening, and great to see the stuff that we've been talking about for a while, we put into play, and see how it progresses. All right, item 3, business matters, non-action items. Post the information of the board, the copies of the following warrants and claims audit report for January 2024. Anyone have any questions on the January warrants?
I did, and I'm sorry I didn't get them in earlier. I didn't read a lot of this until after the super. 3A, the voided checks in the beginning of that warrant, is that all from the ones that were over a year old? And I saw they were reissued out.
Yeah, we have.
We have correct addresses, making sure they're going where they're supposed to go.
Correct address.
They just didn't, they weren't.
Not that much.
The $36,000 payment to the village is water usage?
So it says,
It didn't say anything. It said we paid the village $36,000.
no, it's half from the, SLO.
Fair enough. There was no item on it. I was just questioning. I didn't know what it was for.
That's what it goes up on.
Can you just then also explain the overseas mail on the credit card bill?
We had one of our classes, they did a project over the winter, sending anybody, families in our school that was overseas, and so we paid them.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Well,
And enough on the warrants. Okay, business matters, action items. A, disposals. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District accept the disposals as listed. It's a teacher desk.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item B, non-resident tuition rate. Can I get a resolution, please?
Whereas Part 174 of the Commissioner's Regulations prescribes the methodology to be used by public school districts in determining the tuition rate to be charged for a non-resident pupil attending a public school district, and the State Education Department produces a non-resident tuition output report of tuition rates annually to be used for billing purposes. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education adopt the tuition rates as stated as of February 6th, 2024 on the State Education Department non-resident tuition output report to be used for billing purposes in accordance with Part 174 of the Commissioner's Regulations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
How many non-resident pupils do we have currently?
I think there'll be up to 3 traditional raised families that are in transitional housing that relocate, but continue to remain here in the school. We fill out the tuitions.
Motion carries. Next item C, copier installment purchase. Could I get a resolution, please?
Understood. This one, right?
4C, yeah.
Whereas the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District, hereinafter referred to as the district, desires to enter into a 3-year service agreement with the Albany, Schoharie, Schenectady, Saratoga Board of Cooperative Education Services, hereinafter referred to as CR BOCES, in order for the CR BOCES to furnish certain services to the district pursuant to New York State Education Law 1950, 4JJ, those services being administrative services in COSER 604. Now therefore, it is resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District agrees to enter into a contract with CR BOCES for the provision of said services to the district and not to exceed in total over the life of this agreement the total amount of $11,002.50 and associated CR BOCES charges with such amount to include annual CR BOCES support costs and applicable taxes and surcharges, and with such support costs and applicable taxes and surcharges included at the current rate and subject to change as established in the CR BOCES budget or mandated by any federal, state, or local authority. This amount may be amended with the approval of both parties. The district will be liable to CR BOCES for early cancellation or withdrawal from this agreement to the same extent that CR BOCES is liable to any vendor or vendors of these services, including liability for the applicable penalties or liquidated damages, and the district will also be liable for the cost and expenses, including reasonable attorney fees and disbursement included by CR BOCES as consequence of any such early cancellation or withdrawal. The district further agrees to indemnify, defend, and hold BOCES, its elected officials, its employees, and agents harmless from any and all liability claims, including bodily injury or property damage, cause of action, damages, and expenses, including attorney fees, which may arise out of the negligent action of the district, its elected officials, employees, agents, invitees, and volunteers while using this service. Payment will be made as part of a regular annual CR BOCES contract for services. Further, this agreement is subject to the approval of the Board of Education of CR BOCES. This contract will be for a maximum period of 3 years, commencing on or about February 12th, 2024, and continuing through June 30th, 2027.
Second.
Can I ask a question? It doesn't, like the actual contract wasn't listed. This is for leasing copiers, right?
Using a copy.
This one copier, the one in the staff room? Copier. Okay.
That's eatable back.
Right, so we're doing it through BOCES because the students would be able. We haven't done any other copiers, and what I've done now is I've done an analysis of all of them. This one expired actually 2 years ago, in July before I started. So I worked with BOCES to do the best to at least get paid on it. The price of copiers has dropped significantly. This price is a little bit, it's about where the price was with 3 cents a year a month still through a day. And this is going to be a little bit right in that same ballpark, but for 3 years. Because in 3 years, the other copiers will all come due. So we'll be on a timeline where they all come due at the same time. We will evaluate them and put them all through the BOCES so we can pay them the following year. Currently, this will be the only one that we have that's
Quick question. I have a 15-year-old office copier. Interested donations? Anyone? Like a big one, like, I don't think I could pick it up. No, okay. Sure.
The one that's in there right now, we don't own, but they're, so they're in charge
We
of
don't own.
maintaining it.
Correct, we don't own any of them.
It's like the lease.
We just have to continue paying on this.
Yeah.
6 months increments, 90-day increments, so.
And then if it breaks, they fix it or replace it or whatever it is. Okay.
So now everything and all of the copies of the servicing rate, one company's going to service all of our copies now. We do pay a per copy charge on all of that is normal. We'll get aided on that too. We're all set.
Okay, we have a resolution and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries. Item B, this is an amended version of the property tax exemption for volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. Mrs. Canavo sent a note about this. This is the same thing that we approved before. The only difference with this is, before we had approved it, I think we had listed a specific person that would be, the person that's in charge of maintaining the list of who qualifies. And this version makes it more general, that the person responsible for that is the person who's responsible, so that we don't have to change it every time if that person changes. So could I get a resolution, please?
We don't have to do anything with the old one, or the old resolution. This will supersede. Be it resolved that the Menands Union Free School District hereby adopts the volunteer firefighter and ambulance worker exemption under the real property tax law, section 466-A, based on the district's administrative recommendation of the following exemption levels. 1, 10% of the assessed value as determined by the town assessor of the primary residence of the qualifying applicant. And 2, applicant eligibility will be determined by the authority having jurisdiction based on a minimum of 2 years of applicable service and other statutory requirements. And be it further resolved that the Menands Union Free School District hereby adopts the volunteer firefighter and ambulance worker exemption under real property tax law, section 466-A, based on the district's administrative recommendation of any qualifying applicant as determined by the authority having jurisdiction who accrues more than 20 years of active service and who shall be granted the 10% exemption of the assessed value of their primary residence for the remainder of their life, subject to the applicable statutory requirements. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District hereby authorizes the district to adopt the volunteer firefighters and volunteer ambulance workers tax exemption under real property tax law, section 466-A, based on the district's administrative recommendation to allow any qualifying unremarried spouse of a volunteer firefighter or volunteer ambulance worker killed in the line of duty as determined by the authority having jurisdiction to continue to receive the volunteer firefighter and volunteer ambulance workers tax exemption or reinstate a pre-existing exemption claimed by an enrolled member of an incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or incorporated volunteer ambulance service subject to the applicable statutory requirements. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District hereby authorizes the district to adopt the volunteer firefighters and volunteer ambulance workers tax exemption under real property tax law, section 466-A, based on the district's administrative recommendation to allow any qualifying unremarried spouse of a deceased volunteer firefighter or volunteer ambulance worker as determined by the authority having jurisdiction to continue to receive the volunteer firefighter and volunteer ambulance workers tax exemption or reinstate a pre-existing exemption claimed by an enrolled member of an incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or incorporated volunteer ambulance service subject to the applicable statutory requirements.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are you all allowed to vote on that?
I'll abstain. 'Cause I'm-
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I'll
I apologize.
abstain as a
I
volunteer.
didn't
for
So
that.
also.
if you abstain, you can't second. So
Oh,
Michelle has
sorry.
Michelle has to second it. Or
Okay, sure, I second.
Okay,
Make a note of that, please.
all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Abstain.
Opposed, and then abstention.
Yeah.
Motion carries. Thank you.
I think it's stuck with the long one today.
What's that?
You people should read the long one, right?
Um, All right, that brings us to policy, section, or item A, first reading. Did I get the resolution?
Sure. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, approve the first readings of the following policies A through C as listed.
And I second.
Are there any questions?
I have a few questions just to help me out understand some of this. In 4750, the retention of students, oh, I think it was just a spelling error. In the second line, let me pull it out, I'll read it directly. Oops, blank.
Yeah, mine. Yeah, I don't know if it was internet or it might be board docs. That's
Mine came back up.
weird.
Did I click the right one? Wait a second, 4750. Promotion retention line. K5.
It's spinning.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Second line.
I'm still
Oh.
stuck in the copy.
So if you read that, in general, at the elementary level, students who meet all standards of a satisfactory or better level, all subjects will be promoted. Should it be shall or all, or there should be a comma or something in here?
Yeah,
Just check that.
that's like
This may be a question for after, but what is our retention rate or percentage? Is it higher in the middle school or elementary school?
We haven't had a student retain in a very long time.
Okay, I didn't,
Sometimes we get parent requests, particularly in kindergarten. At middle school, we always offer the opportunity for students to attend summer school. It used to be out of cost to families. It's problematic. Some families can afford or they can transport, but we've been doing summer school in-house, and since doing that, we haven't had a student retained in. I'm looking at Mrs. Vandenberg because she tracks all of that for us. We haven't had a student retained in quite a long time.
great. Let me just move on to the other one, the 5B. Oh, must be the workplace violence. The students and employees, so it says the superintendent, there's an attachment to policies, which I didn't see an attachment, or is that just something that's in, mine's loading again. Give me 1 second while I catch up. On pedal faster.
It's board docs itself, I think.
Is it doc?
Yeah, it's erroring out. I'm not able to see it.
I'm not sure what line it is or what paragraph, but it says the superintendent, there's an attachment to the policy that the superintendent provides for. I'm assuming it has to do with the,
Workplace.
I'm gonna get rid of this other one. Yeah, it's a violence.
Student
Student
form
and,
that somebody has to sign.
one second. Should write the page numbers down next time. Sorry.
There's a section that says, as required by law, that district will have a workplace violence prevention program to include certain things. I'll write an outline for employee training and thing for annual program review. Is that it? on page, like, end of page 2.
Sylvia said something about the superintendent having attached to this policy. Give me one more second, I'm catching up. You guys just did this one, right? This is the first reading?
Mhm.
I don't want to hold up all night or be here all night trying to find it through the slow internet, but before we make it final, can we just get verification on that?
Yes, double check it and.
Yeah.
Ask Jen and the policy committee, for any clarifying questions you have. I will say that when we were discussing this policy, Jen let us know that they're in the process of developing the workplace violence prevention program. Having a workplace violence prevention policy and or program used to be a requirement for workplaces in New York State, but not schools. The new requirement for schools.
Great.
And part of the requirement was that we have this policy in place.
Perfect.
So we need to have a policy in place to meet the requirements, and they're still working on developing the plan that will go along with this policy.
Okay. I don't mind
If
going.
there's anything specific that it says is attached, that,
Yeah.
we either need to make sure it is attached, or if it doesn't say that it is, or, point to wherever that thing is listed, so find it. Let us know.
I don't mind going. I can go forward with the first reading on this. Is fine. We'll ask the questions or make notes, adjustments for the second one. That's all I have.
All right, any other questions from the rest of the members? All right, I think we have a second, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And to B, final reading of policy. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved. Yeah. Be it resolved that the board, should I just read from the paper or just?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just gonna switch over to my paper copy because I can't get it's not even.
Yeah.
So be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, approve the final readings of the following policies A through C as listed. Sexual harassment of students, employees, and the header.
Second.
All right, were there any questions on these? This is the final reading. These were on our agenda last month.
I'm sorry. 5. This is 5B.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was on this one I had the question.
Oh, okay.
This is where it says inside there in the sexual harassment of students and sexual harassment of employees. The superintendent does something to an attached. There should be attachments to the files here. And I thought it was 5B. It says 5B, but I can't pull it up now.
Yeah,
either.
same.
Excuse me, we had it through,
Ooh.
drive.
Oh, you're doing way better than me.
No, it says oops.
Yeah.
Oops, the page you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
I was excited for a second.
Which policy was it? You said the employee.
So both students and employees policy has a line in there where it says something to the effect that the superintendent is in charge of something and it's attached to the file. I'd like to know what the attachment is. I'm not opposed to this, just would like to know.
The third paragraph says these regulations are to be attached to this policy.
What regulations? Okay, mine's coming up.
Everybody see that?
On page 2, under sexual harassment of students, 01-0.2. Superintendent of schools is directed to develop and implement regulations to inform investigating and mediating the allegations of sexual harassment. These regulations are to be attached to the policy.
Do we have those? Is that still being developed?
Yeah, that would be, those are being developed in partnership with NEDM, through our health and safety team. And they will help us have all the forms that we need and the forms that we complete for investigation. In the case of sexual harassment, our Title IX coordinator is Kathleen. So she would partner with our labor relations person to do the investigation, complete the paperwork, take the claims, And she would partner with Needham in doing that, just because they're the ones. It has to be a school district employee that does the investigation, but we would partner with them for their level of expertise. And if the board would like to hold until Needham has completed those documents for us, we can do that. Or, I mean, it's not going, we have a sexual harassment
I was gonna ask,
policy
there's one
in
that
place.
exists already, right? If we replace it with a new one, and tomorrow the form needs to be had, and we don't have one, but we have a new policy that was just adopted, I feel uncomfortable not having the forms that we need to have on file moving
We have-
forward,
So if we keep our current policy for now, we have our current forms.
all the current stuff.
I don't believe they're gonna change dramatically.
Okay.
However, we certainly can wait until we have those to go ahead and complete the policy. If there was an allegation of sexual harassment, we would use, if it happened
Existing
2
policy.
weeks ago, we would use existing policy, existing forms, and the laws would not change.
We can hold if you want. It's just, is it a form that you're talking about or the regulations? The 01101-R?
On the second page. It's the second paragraph on the second page, the superintendent. It's so small. Bigger, this one, read the first 3 lines of that paragraph.
I see, okay. Regulations are different. Well, I was wondering if it's the R version that's not, has something that is already existing. The regulation was a separate document. And that wasn't something that we're working on that we needed, is it? Or is it just an existing?
The regulations, the regulation,
Right,
that one. This is actually kind of our internal procedures. So how would we report, investigate, and remedy? They have forms that would handle those.
Okay. The other thing I was gonna say is, I think the policy that we have on file right now, it's not a separate one for employees and students, right? That was like the big difference here, is that we were separating it out, into 2 different policies.
I like that too.
Right,
It should be different.
yeah,
Policy we currently have focuses mostly on employees, whereas students tended to be covered more under DASSA. And now they are requiring a policy that calls out students, calls out staff and the adults. So that's really the big.
and the student policy was closely aligned with the data. I'm okay holding it, I guess, how long do we think it'll take to develop the policies and forms that we need them?
They usually are pretty quick as far as the turnaround goes. They have been working mostly with us on workplace violence currently, but they do have our documents to review. And I would say if I gave them a deadline of March 11th as our next board meeting, I'm sure they would be able to comply with that.
Okay. Yeah, I think if we want to hold it for now, I don't want to like keep pushing it down the road.
I don't
but if
want to
we
push it
think
down the
it's gonna be
road, but I would
another-
rather have it completed and
Right,
make sure we get all the information, take a final look at it.
Yeah.
And then, because this is final reading on this one, I'd
It
rather
is
have
final
it,
reading.
I'd
yeah.
rather have everything in line, make sure everyone's on the same page, personally.
Yep.
You can poll everyone, or you just bump it to next month, it's your call.
Yeah, I'm okay bumping it to next month unless anyone feels strongly otherwise. Okay, so I think we did, I don't know how to do that. We did already do a first and a second. Do we need to vote on it or can we just pull that back and table it? I don't know how that works.
There's a motion on the floor, if there's no vote, then you table it, and you can bring it up next month.
Okay. Let's do that. All right, that takes us to item 6, personnel matters, personnel agenda. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District approves the updated personal agenda items as attached. A, instructional staff end date, building sub, leave of absence, Alex Graham. Instructional staff appointment, building sub, Brianna Bola. Instructional staff appointment, teacher aide, Tammy McNamara. Instructional staff appointment, substitute, Tammy McNamara. Instructional staff appointment, homework club tutor, Bradley Inke. Non-instructional staff appointment, substitute nurse, amended, Leanne O'Connell. non-instructional staff appointment, cell phone stipend, Tyler Ackerman.
I'll second it, but I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Item G, why the stipend is on a personnel agenda versus a line item or something? Can that be explained to us why we're doing that?
So
And
normally,
why, and who's getting that stipend?
so normally we live in the terms and conditions, but we brought on 2 new night guys, so we didn't give them a cell phone stipend until we got to know them and wanted to determine who would be the better person to be on call at night in the event of an emergency. So they become our person for contacts if somebody's in the building and needs assistance, if something goes wrong.
That we can advertise it.
So it wasn't part of their terms. It was just, we're doing this.
We want to figure out who would be the,
And then we can add it to the terms next time.
Yeah.
And it will be prorated.
I'm good. Nope, I'm good.
All
Thanks.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, superintendent program recommendations, CSE, BCSE recommendations, can I get a motion to see?
Yep. Hang on.
Sorry, I was getting up entirely.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District hereby approve the CSE, CPSE recommendations as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 7B, substitute teachers fully cleared, can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District approve the substitute teachers in the attached document for the 2023-2024 school year. Ms. Hannah Boss and Liam Creaser.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, student matters, enrollment updates. 277. Item 9, administrative updates, principal's comments. This is why.
Every board in Northeast is having a board meeting tonight, so Docs is overloaded.
So, many of you were there for our winter concert, which was, I have to say that was the first time that last year when I came to the winter concert was my first exposure to Menands. And, it was really, it was a, I don't know, really exciting experience for me to be a part of it, you know, because I was on the outside of it, but like hopeful and so excited. And, it is, as you all know, what an amazing experience to see all these families, all these kids in this space, all enjoying music, but enjoying each other. And it's just really a special event. And I don't know how else to describe it. You all know, but it is pretty awesome. We have a couple pictures of the kiddos at work. Miss Hayes did an awesome job. She impresses me how she brings in so many different types of music. You know, I think back to my days of standing up and singing, you know, on the risers, and that's not for every kid, and that's not for every grade. It's not, you know, different kids like different things. So she's really done a great job, including other instruments and other ideas and ways for the kids to perform. And she had a lot of really great pop music that the kids, you know, at least maybe we liked it. I think the kids liked it too, but I think we all appreciated the music. The 8th graders had their high school fair. So this was right here in school, and the 5 schools that they could choose from were here, and they presented. And the kids were interested and excited to begin to think about that next step. A couple of the schools brought goodies, and of course that became the most popular school to visit, that table. Ms. Vandenberg put it all together, so
thank you to Vandenberg for creating this opportunity for the kids, but I think they all had a lot of great questions and a lot of great ideas about what happens for them next. So that was a good day for them. We had our staff for students volleyball game. I believe the staff, I don't know if we were victorious, I'm not sure. It's all for fun, right? Not Friday.
Not Friday, but we'll get to that. Please continue.
We'll hold off on that. But Mr. Benoit is running the volleyball club, so he asked for staff to come and play against the kids. The kids did great. It's great to see kids of different grade levels being leaders out there and enjoying the sport. And the staff didn't do so shabby. They were objecting to PJ being on the net. They felt that was an unfair advantage at 6 foot. Whatever. Suck it up, right? You can do it. We believe in you, kiddos. All right. You'll recognize this one. Mr. Nevins took the kids to U Albany, and although I was not able to attend, I got text messages from Jen during it saying what a great experience it was, and how the kids loved it. They enjoyed. They were screaming their hearts out, eating everything in sight. I hear, Mr. Nevins.
Yes, they did.
Lots of snacks to be had, lots of cheering to be had, and they had a great time there. So that we had our PTA paint night, and that was another fun-filled, messy night. Messy night.
Not
Yeah.
terrible. But
Yeah. I will tell you, the kids in school talked about it for days,
yeah.
so they were very excited about it, and they enjoyed spending time with each other. But I also like that when I hear people talking about it, I'm hearing kindergartens talk about it, and I'm hearing 7th graders talk about it. So it's hard, finding that place where you can reach all those kids is tough, and Meet Night does it. So I guess you get messy and they all love it. So there's a couple pictures. Yeah, there's an 8th grader, and we got all our grade levels represented here. Tech Valley came to school and did some STEM activities in our cafeteria with the kids. Sherry, 7th grade? Yes, 7th grade, right? Was it 6th as well?
Sorry, actually,
Makes sense.
6th and 7th, I think we're there. Yeah.
Which is that we've had a lot of events going on.
Yeah, we've been a very busy place. So Tech Valley came and their students came and did some science experiments with the students in the cafeteria. The kids were so excited about it. They enjoyed it, right, Sherry? They were.
If I could
Yeah,
just talk
please.
for a second, we are the only school that they come to, and I did not realize that. I was asking the teacher, I said, oh, what other school are you visiting? What's your schedule? And they said, oh, just and I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So they had about 30 kids that they brought from Tech Valley. Unfortunately, none of our students. I was really super excited for the past years. We've seen them. But they brought about 30 students, and thank goodness our administration were quick figures because 30 bigger bodies and 6th and 7th graders don't fit classrooms. But we thought that, and we moved, and I will tell you, those kids, and those pictures just show us a small snapshot. It was a lot.
And Jerry, I might be picking on you for the next one too, because the next slide is our CTE field trip visit. So they went to the BOE CTE Center, and they got to, I'm sure this is the pet tech department, right? Yep, they love the pet tech department, but they got to interact with kids and staff around the various career paths that they could choose there. The kids were coming back buzzing about that as well. Lots of fun ideas, lots of exciting pathways that they were thinking about. Anything you want to add?
It's just an amazing program, and we started it last year, and we're unique because most people who visit are planning on going there for 11th and 12th grades, for 10th graders. So the fact that they invite our 8th graders in is amazing, and they really enjoy our kids. They want to start now early, and this year they let them actually choose what program they want to go see. And so they woke us all up, and kids got to really dive in while other students are still there and really see things in action. Well, then cooking. One of our students, the chef came and said, "Come on, you want to go to culinary arts? Let's go!" And he was making tiramisu. I was like, "What are you doing?" But yeah, it was really fantastic.
What grade can start school there in 9th grade?
No, they go there in 10th, I'm sorry, 11th and 12th, but they
They
usually
only do-
visit until their 10th
Right.
grade. So the fact that they let us in to look around.
Right.
Eighth graders.
Yeah, no, it's good for them to keep in the back of their mind. I just didn't know if they had programs for younger kids too.
And it
Only,
makes a difference when you're choosing your high school,
right.
because certain places, if you're going to the Valley campus, you can't choose BOCES. If you go to Tech Valley,
Right, Tech Valley,
Yeah,
they
she was
don't
both.
have that, right, and actually North Colony just started sending to the CTs at night. For years, they weren't doing that, they were doing something else. So, sorry, this is my jam,
So,
so.
no, it's okay.
It's
It's gonna be relevant to me soon, so.
Yeah, it's important that they get exposure now, because their decisions will determine, right, if they even have access to this.
Right, so.
So our Black History Month celebration is underway, and we have had a good time with it. Last week, the various teachers got on midday and shared a lesser known African American in history. And then they also supplied all the classes with a slideshow about that person, videos, articles, read alouds, things that they could do to supplement the class. So I thank the staff that came together around that, a lot of our AIS staff and teachers gathered around that cause last week. This week is our Spirit Week. And today I failed with Spirit Week because it was red, yellow, or green for Garrett Morgan, who invented the traffic light. Failed that task. But tomorrow is a new day, and tomorrow is rock and roll, rock star day. So I will, spiky hair, here we come. So, but each day has a different day that is dedicated to a person in history. So, and then Friday is our PJ Day for I Have a Dream for MLK. So we look forward to that. And then next week, we will, we have a off, right? And then the following week, we'll lead into our Black History Month celebration. And that brings us to this slide. I know you can't see it too well. I tried to make it a little bit darker, but I could not. It is a recipe card. It was sent out to all the families and sent out to community members. What we're looking to do is get recipes, traditional African-American food recipes, and then we're going to make a recipe book. And our home graders is going to make a couple of recipes. And at
The kids.
the kids and they're going to make recipes, and they're going to be giving out the food at the evening. So we look forward to that. This Friday, we also have our basketball game. We'll get back to that in a second, so we'll jump ahead. We did have our Zuzu African acrobatics here. It was our whole school assembly, so it was really great to have all the kids in there. And if you can see the faces on the left, that's pretty much what they were like for an hour straight. They loved it. It was
And
great.
after school, their faces still look like that. Mine did at least, my kids.
They were fast. Mine was, I was like the whole time, Jen would like take pictures so I could put them in, and I couldn't because I was too busy dancing, singing, and in awe of what they did for the, just the performance was amazing. So there's a couple more slides of some things they did. The kids loved it. One we don't have in here is there was like a contortionist. So that was like the big hit, but also the big fear. Like, I mean, this guy's body was wrapped in circles and a pretzel. I mean, it was, I don't know how he did it, but it was pretty cool. I also thought about like when we were piling on those chairs, I was like, what is the insurance going to be like? Like, make sure we're insured here. Because he was all the way up to the hoop, like standing on chairs. It was pretty awesome. So the kids loved it. It was a great time. So before I move on to staff development, I just want to share some things that are going on with the staff, but we do have, I get to talk about that now. So the kids are very excited. So if you stop in on Friday at 1:30, the staff will be playing the kids, the 8th graders. There is a lot of junk to be taught right now in all directions. They've been asking me to open the gym that the boys have in so they can practice and get ready for me and get ready for the staff, and we'll see how it goes. But we are looking forward to it, and as Jen said, no fire alarms will be pulled. We're not bailing anybody out. So, yep. Staff development. So I just wanted to share, there's been a lot of teachers really working hard and doing a lot of learning that meet our strategic goals. So I think last time someone had brought up on the board about the science of reading information. I can't remember who we talked about that from the state. I think you have, right? Yeah. So I just wanted to just draw attention that our AIS and first grade teachers did just attend letter training, which does connect with that science of reading approach. Just today, we had BOCES coach in to work with our art library for the fifth grade ELA. So they are working on curriculum development. I know that art specifically worked very hard on Black History Month and finding Black artists that represent, that could help inspire art for the month. So I know they worked on that today. The administrative staff, I know Jen and Tracy Trainer, our instructional coach, went to MLK school in Schenectady to see their ELA curriculum. So, and that kind of goes along with our science of reading, and as we're moving forward to make sure that we're meeting our ELA needs for our students, just continually looking to see what else is out there and how it's looking in other schools. We're planning a visit to see math curriculums, so we have a few schools in mind. Our new teacher mentor meetings are underway. We've had a couple of them, and today we had one. We're really spending some time diving into Responsive Classroom, because what we find is Responsive Classroom is a workshop. It's a 4-day workshop, and then you've got to go and implement it, and helping new teachers implement it will be key for us to sustaining the practice. And then in our teacher and faculty meetings, we've been working on a ton of things around our learning targets. We're going to revisit CRE, the culturally responsive educational practices, and then we'll revisit RC as well, and working on learning targets that will connect with our instructional goals and our strategic plan. And then what do we have coming our way? So Black History Month Spirit Week, school break, obviously, Black History Month celebration. It's at 6 o'clock on the 29th. If you all would like to join, please join us. We have our PTA pancake breakfast and middle school fun night coming up. Any questions?
That's great. Thank you, Mrs. Wiley, for sharing. 90, superintendent's comments.
So last week, Courtney and I went to the IDA meeting where the Regeneron pilot was approved. So that will be moving forward, and the proposed figures and numbers were those that we had expected and numbers that Mayor Marsh had been working on us with. So that pilot looks like it will be moving forward. The closing has to happen prior to March 1st in order for it to come on for this school year, and it looks like it is on pace to do so. And in tonight's budget presentation, Joanne has accounted for that pilot to come. So we will be sharing those numbers with you. I don't know if there's anything else that you would add in regards to that, Courtney.
Yeah, just like you said, if they aren't able to make their deadline, obviously those numbers are going to change. It's going to be tricky because they're going to be right up against the deadline, which is legal too. So that's going to be, or Joanne won't get any sleep probably.
No, because even if it changes, the money shifts from the tax cap calculation was allowable for us to increase our levy. So I take that amount out and I'll put it in the revenue from the pilot. So it won't really hurt, it won't make a tremendous impact on the new money because of the tax revenue, whether it be due to a pilot or our calculation. But again, it is a headache because it has to be submitted, but it'll be over.
The tax cap want us to be submitted, right? So the money won't change. It's just
Not drastically, correct.
what our tax cap is going to be for the year to change. Yep. Yeah, like Jen said, this reflects the updated numbers. At the meeting, we thanked Mayor Marsh and Regeneron and the Albany County IDA for revisiting those numbers. The initial proposal that they came out with had their pilot amount, the amount that they were contributing at a much lower figure. And they renegotiated that to be a more favorable number to the village of Menands and to the district, and we thank them for working with us on that. There were still some questions even in the meeting about some of the numbers that weren't right on their table, but they agreed in principle to what the renegotiated figures were. So hopefully that all just works.
They dropped it to 10 years, right?
10 years, it's starting at what the taxable amount was currently,
Right.
and then a phased in schedule for over a 10-year period on a schedule of phased in increases in taxes based on what they expect the approved or improvements on the property to be. I don't know how they did that math, but someone did that math.
The second piece would be budget advocacy. We went to meet with Assemblyman Steck and Senator Ashby. Courtney Bill joined me in that meeting along with Joanne, both of them. I think that there's a pretty united front around not supporting the reduction in foundation aid. But the piece that continues to be stressed to us is that the advocacy needs to be more than that. There's other things that still matter. There's other things that are still important to schools. So we continue to do that work, along with sending a letter to each Ashby and Steck regarding the particular needs and particular differences that Menands may have compared to other districts and what that means for us. So we will continue with that work and be sure to keep working with our local BOCES, and then in particular, we work with North Colony and South Colony as we work to advocate specifically with our elected officials. And then last but not least, the LEAD program. That is a redesigned, updated version, if you remember back in school, the DARE program. So that program has phased out over time, and LEAD is what has replaced that. So the police department has purchased the materials to pilot it with our second and fifth graders this year. The officer works with our students. It's around drug prevention, peer pressure, those sorts of big topics. It happens over the course of 10 weeks, and the teacher is in the classroom while the material is being shared and presented. So we're going to pilot it with our second and fifth graders, and then we will make some decisions moving forward if it's something that we will continue to do. I know our Menands PD really took the lead in the area, getting other agencies trained and prepared to work with students and have this program within, UPCB.
Is it a different trained officer or RCO?
It will be, they have, just like their cross-training CROs, it'll be Officer Stone and Officer Coleman.
Any questions? All right, thank you. To administrative updates. Business manager comments. Joanne?
I have a few things to update the Board of Education about. One of the challenges we have, I think, sometimes because our school district's a little small, when we need work done, whether it be plumbing or HVAC or electricians. I don't know why it is we ask for pricing and something, we end up waiting 2 weeks. We ended up, I reached out to McBain Electric, and they have been really great. We have some electricity problems in the lower grade levels. They worked on that. I don't know if you noticed, they upgraded the lighting outside. I will still agree that we need additional lighting, but they changed to the LED lighting that had a definitely positive impact on the visual around the building. We'll be adding to that hopefully this summer as they do the paving. We'll work it out that we can figure out how to add lighting out there as well. But we were very pleased with that. It was extremely affordable. It was less than $3,000 to do those upgrades to LED lighting, which was nice. Order update, the audit committee met this evening. We are going to be moving ahead with West. You'll get a resolution at our next board meeting to appoint our auditor. They were the only people that responded, but we are pleased with their work, so the audit committee felt as though that was fine. Clerk of the Works update, I know that's very important to me. I know it is to the Board of Education. Who's going to give us oversight over the aspect of the project this summer? We know that it's a very limited scope. It's the roof, it's the paving. But I know the paving is of concern to all of us. And so I've been working with Scott Wolf at CS Arch about what we can do for that. We've gone through a couple of things, but I would imagine in April we'll be able to bring a recommendation to the board. Right now, they're under contract with Weston and Sampson for some of the design work of the site. And we have two options. They could provide somebody to be here to make sure it's built to their specifications. And we can either pay that through CSR or pay it directly. But there's going to be somewhere in the ballpark of 13,000 to 15,000 for that Clerk of the Works service this summer. But I'll be able to update. I'm planning to update the board on that in either next meeting or the one in April, and have an idea of exactly who's going to do it and at what cost to the district. The rooftop unit, I know that this board, we had a hearing, a public hearing earlier this year about repair reserves to replace this rooftop unit right above the front as you walk in this building. The lead time, they thought we wouldn't get that piece of equipment for quite some time. Well, it's here, and we are scheduling to do that work during next week. So when you stop by here, please don't park in the circle. I'm not sure where the crane's going to be. A crane will be needed to lift that unit on roof as well as take the old one off. But we have quite a few things working, and at the same time, we're trying to get everything else done. But those are some of the big ticket items that we're working on right now.
Thank you, John. Brings us to item 10, miscellaneous. Does anyone have anything?
I was just reading about, are there a couple of more pilots coming up in minutes?
Yep, so there's one that was already approved, the Veterans Housing Project.
Can I speak to that?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry. The veteran, I looked into that after you said that. Now, it was approved, that will not come on our books until the work is done. So when a pilot is approved, right now we have one that's active, that's on our books, it's Cashman Electric. That's on our books. We don't have another one right now. The Veterans Housing, they're not assuming that that work will be done until next year, that we could possibly see that on our books for the next tax roll. So once the work is done, that's when you'd see a pilot payment come on our books. And right now, the Veterans Housing is, again, in process. You have Simmons, if they apply for something, that would be after the work is done. Each one is individual.
Right.
The Regeneron one, to me, is the sticky wicket, because if it's not, if they don't close on that by the end of February, it's still going to be a pilot. It's just not going to impact us until the next year. So, and it'll go, and again, they'll have to calculate how they'll give us 3% flat on what our dollars are. And then the improvements to the property as it's going, we'll get a percentage of that. And that'll be the assessor's that they figure out. But
It
that's how
sounds like
that.
they already had a number attached to that, though, the guy that was at the meeting said that they had those numbers already negotiated, they just didn't give them to us accidentally. It sounded like they just left it out of the
We'll have to see how that works out. But,
Right.
But either way, it's gonna come out, once it comes on the books, it ends up having, it decreases your ability to raise the new tax money, but you're subsidizing that with that pilot money.
Right.
And then when it comes off the tax cap in 10 years or 15 or whatever the term is, then your tax cap's gonna go way up because that pilot money is gone.
Right. Even though the dollars, it's really just a transfer of dollars from
Correct.
one bucket to the other.
Correct.
It's gonna be, right, the challenge is going to be explaining that to the public that your taxes aren't going up, even though the tax cap is going up by this amount, because they're absorbing some of that.
Correct, and part of that is, the win there is that the new assessed value is on your tax roll now, so
Right.
that kind of helps you a little bit.
Right, which keeps the individual homeowner's taxes from going up, even though the cap from the district looks like a big number in that year.
But, the veterans one will not be on the roll, will not be,
For the
they can play in the budget season.
Okay. So does that answer your question? There are several upcoming, but we're not sure the timing of almost any of them really. Except for possibly the Regeneron one coming up soon. So do you have anything for miscellaneous?
No one else have anything? No one has anything? I feel like I always have something to say, and I'm taking away from other members to share the knowledge. I look forward to the staff 8th grade basketball game this Friday. I do every year. Kids are ready. If we have to call EMS for oxygen for the staff, we can get them on site. But and just after that, on the 18th, 17th, the 17th Saturday, there's a CYO alumni fundraiser game. Again, a lot of aged out people in the program are going to play the current 7th, 8th plus students in the program. So that'll be a great day. It's a fundraiser, Saturday, 11 o'clock. Want to show up? That's awesome. Fish fry on Friday night at the Menands Firehouse.
Oh, nice.
It starts. Lent here. I don't know what the schedule is, but I know this Friday I'm having fish. So, and that supports the firehouse or the fire department, I'm not sure. People,
Fire department.
it's a department, right? I was confused. Either way, go have fish fry on Fridays. That's all I have.
Helen starts, guys.
Fridays. No, we don't.
I have stuff, but I didn't write it down, I can't remember it was important, I'll bring it up next week. Brings us to public comment. During public comment sessions, members of the community may address the board on agenda and non-agenda items. The board president may make remarks. Speakers should identify themselves and the topic on which they'd like to make remarks. It also mentioned that we can enter executive session. Before we get to public comment, I will note that we will be doing executive session, but because we're doing a budget workshop tonight, we don't want to make you all wait to do our executive session and come back, so we're going to do our budget hearing first, and then we will have executive session at the end of the meeting. We do not expect to take action at that meeting. So now public comment. Anybody here have anything?
I just wrote the midday comment about people who have a kindergarten component. He's so excited about, Ella Fitzgerald and like throwing all these games, like was incredible. So that was like.
Cool.
Vanessa Mercado. I just wanted to say that the PTA is going to be looking to fill some positions for the executive board. So if you know of any parents that you think might be a good fit, or maybe somebody who might be interested, please let the nomination committee know. I'm a member of the nomination committee.
Strong arm into that one, yeah, sorry, Vanessa. When she says a few members, she means almost the entire PTA board, so I'd be asking you if you know
Are they meeting
anybody.
now?
President, vice president,
So the
They don't
secretary.
have
president,
little
vice
kids in the
president.
school, they don't want to
No, but
participate.
yeah, you can only do one term. And then it's like in the bylaws, you can't.
You gotta change that.
You can't, it's
You
like a
can
New York
change
State
that.
thing.
Yeah, New York
Although,
State thing.
I'll tell you
We'll
that a
change
few
that.
years ago, the New York State PTA did say, since we're such a small district, we could revisit terms, but the people that have been on the board, this is not their first term.
Yeah, they've been here.
So they've been there multiple terms, and it is an opportunity for new families to get more active and get involved with the PTA.
Except for the secretary who is unfortunately just moving out of district.
They can't just change positions?
They have.
But
They did.
So, the other thing is for the alumni name, there's an opportunity that every person who comes in and pays a ticket has an opportunity to win, to throw a shot, right? They have to throw a shot, and, they could win $500 sponsored by somebody.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's $10 to get into the game, but I think it's gonna be an epic game, and it's an opportunity to win $500 if you can make that shot with this fight.
It's a small gym. You can make it happen. I
I've
forgot.
seen her
Thank-
make-
Vanessa,
I've seen her
thank
make
you.
a shot.
Thank you, Vanessa, I forgot all about that. That's a great promo, great push on that. That's awesome. Is the PTA breakfast all you can eat?
I
Starving.
so. I mean, pancakes, like how many pancakes can you eat?
Sounds like,
Challenge?
yeah, sounds exactly like.
That's
a
challenge.
Accept it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything? No comments online? Okay, then can I get a motion to adjourn for our budget workshop?
Just before we do that, and just a point of order, if we're going to go into executive session, we're adjourning the meeting. We did not notify that we're having, the executive meeting was notified online, then we have to re-enter public session, that's a new meeting. So in my opinion, we should stay in the meeting through the budget
That would be the budget workshop.
and then adjourn to executive session at that point, because we didn't actually notify anyone we're having a separate meeting. If anyone has any other comments about that, I'll take them.
an okay for how this is set up, from different corporates and different,
Okay,
school districts, but, no one has done it in this order before.
budget workshop should be first, in my opinion. And, right, because you get people here, they want to hear about the budget, they want to know what their taxes are going to look like, blah, 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 and then they scuttle out, because the rest of the stuff is attended by two people, right? But it's set up, it's done. I'm just saying, executive sessions, we have to re-enter public session, we have to actually end the meeting. If you end the meeting, it's now a new meeting that has not been advertised. And I don't want to have it be any issues, but if it's been approved and you're good with it,
I guess I
the
also don't,
superintendent and the president are good with it, I'm good with it.
I don't see any, I mean, there's no reason we can't do a budget workshop in public session, right?
Absolutely. And we can have Frank take a look at it.
All right, why don't we stay in public session for the budget workshop? We'll just,
Take a 2-minute break. It'd be awesome.
okay, we're gonna take a break for Bill, just make sure when you do the, when you do the minutes, we'll just move, take out item 12 and we'll put that to after, we'll switch items 12 and 13.
Nobody else take a break.
Take
I'll be right
take
back.
a brief
No one else is
recess.
allowed to leave because Bill was the only one.
So how long is Lent? Okay, you're taking a
Oh,
break too?
40 days.
40 days. Okay.
Yeah. So for Catholics, right? Mardi Gras
Yeah.
in Louisiana.
So 3 days a week, I'm going 5 days.
Oh,
Sorry.
man.
Everybody wants.
I took more than 2 minutes, but I
Sure,
appreciate the,
sure.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I went and got a little water refill.
All right.
I stayed at the
Yeah, no, that's stressful.
Sorry, thank you.
All right, we're back to Mrs. Meadows and Joanne for our budget workshop.
So this is our second budget workshop presentation that we have for you this evening. Tonight, we are going to get a little bit more in detail with a comparison from this school year's budget to our projected and what we're looking at for next year. What I would say is over the course of the budget, you should expect the budget presentations to get more and more specific over time. We will dig a little bit deeper and get a little bit more detailed as we work through each presentation with you. So tonight, as always, we start with our strategic initiatives and district goals. All of the decisions that we make around budgeting should be rooted in these goals and the work that we have committed to do for and with students around student achievement, social emotional learning, the continued work in DEI, while also maintaining our responsibility fiscally. So our first slide for you is an overview of expenditures versus revenue. And we're looking at this year's budget. That's the first column, the 23-24 voter approved budget. And then this is our initial rollover budget in the second column for you. So for expenditures, if we do everything that we're doing and roll it over and we take care of the things that we know that we need to include, we are looking at a $394,448 increase, or a 3.41% increase from last year's approved budget to our rollover budget this year. When we look at revenue, we look at revenue without fund balance. We just want to look at the money that we will have coming in, whether it's through taxes, pilots, things of that nature. So from 23-24 to what we're projecting in 24-25, we're looking at a $296,540 increase if we go out at the tax cap, or a 2.80% increase. And then we are actually looking at a decrease in the fund balance and reserves that we would be utilizing. Last year, we used $950,000. Looking into next school year, we will be looking at $900,000. Some of that is unassigned fund balance, and some of that is reserves for TRS and ERS. And that would be a decrease in the use of fund balance at 5.26% increase. Looking at all of this simply before we talk about anything else, we're looking at about $147,908 gap between our expenditures and our revenues. Do you have anything, Joanne?
No.
Before you go on, did we use fund balance to fund the architect project
Correct.
last year?
Yes.
But it's still in here. Wasn't that a $150,000 expenditure that we took and put in fund balance from last year? Because we were around 800, give or take. We increased to 950 to cover the architect expense.
You are absolutely correct. But I have,
Go ahead.
that recommendation would be, based on the fact that we have built up our reserves, I would assume that we would take a little bit more. We're cited for having in excess of 4%. It would make sense to use a little bit more fund balance, assigned fund balance, and yet we keep increasing our TRS and our ERS reserves. This allows us to use those reserves in the event we need to. So I would assume that we could use 25 from each reserve. And then if we don't need it, great, we're good. And if we do, we can replenish it at the end of the year. We still have more fund balance. It's, that your fund balance is never really don't know if you need it until the end of the year. But instead of keep building up our ERS and TRS reserve, let's start planning on using some of it if there's a need.
Okay.
Is the need for those because of the increased contribution rates? Is that why
The
you're
increased
using some of
contribution
that?
rates, program costs and everything else, and then we can say to the Office of the State Comptroller, and we defend our 4%, we are using more fund balance. They wouldn't want us to not use any of it. And chances are, historically, this district has had approximately 4 to 7% unspent fund in their expenditure number for the last 5 years or so. And if we still have that, and we know we don't really want to take a drastic hit to fund balance in any one particular year unless it's something absolutely unforeseen, this allows us to manage that in a nice way. Use some of it, We still are gonna have the excess I was doing from unspent funds. It should be pretty much, I would still anticipate a positive impact on fund balance at the end of the year.
If this goes like exactly to, the plan and all that, and there still is a gap, would you say, oh, we need to hit up the fund balance for another $148,000?
Jen and I would reduce expenditures, and there are still some things that we have not looked at yet.
Right.
And that are still need to be analyzed.
Mhm. Yeah, a draft, definitely. I was just curious if it did play out like that. If it was, oh, sorry, we might need to cut here, here, and here, or what. But
I feel like it's not uncommon to have a gap like that
Right.
at this point in the budget.
Mhm.
What is included in the rollover budget? We have taken into account all contractual obligations. We have taken into account estimates for non-instructional salary increases. Please remember that non-instructional salary increases are driven by their evaluations at the end of the school year. We are looking to address starting pay inequities for some of our 12-month non-instructional our employees. If you remember, it took us quite a long time to fill some of our evening custodial positions, and it's simply that our pay is just not competitive. It includes full-time clerical support that is expiring from our ESSER funds. So our ESSER funds sunset at the end of August this school year, or at the end of August before September starts. And we have 2 employees who still are being paid out of ESSER funds. We have 1 cafeteria staff member who will move into the cafeteria fund, so that will not have an impact on the general fund. But then we have a clerical staff member who is being paid out of ESSER funds, and that person needs to be moved into the general fund. And then last but not least, this is maintaining all of our program offerings, staffing, extracurriculars, all of the things that we have done for students this year, we would assume that we can do again next year. What's not included in our rollover budget, the first one being our summer academic programs, the ESSER funds go through August, so our summer academic programs are captured still in your ESSER funds for this upcoming summer. What I would say is keep in mind that as we plan for our 25-26 budget, those funds will have expired on ESSER and we will have to account for those in the following year. But we'll look at grants and see what we can cover through grants and things of that nature. We still need to review all of our tuitions. The good news is we have about the same number of 8th graders going up to Shaker as we have leaving. So the in and out should be pretty even. However, it looks like our non-resident tuition will be a bit lower in 23-24, which could have a positive impact on our general fund expenses. It looks like the tuitions we will be paying are going to decrease a little bit. We still have not finalized out-of-district private and public placements. That is still going through the annual review process. We will be reviewing the placement schedules for O&M, technology, furniture, and equipment. Over the last couple of years, we've committed to a schedule to ensure that we are not seeing big bumps in those areas, and we're doing a little bit at a time. And then last but not least, Joanne has accounted for our BOCES rollover at 4%, but that increase is not final. That is an estimate that we're doing at this point in time. And that a decrease, if we have a decrease in BOCES spending, remember that can negatively impact our BOCES 8 because it lags a year behind. So those will be the next areas that we will address as we are planning through the budget workshop. They are not accounted for here tonight.
Jen, what's O&M?
It's Ed, Phil, it's our
Operations.
Operations.
Or
Yeah.
facilities.
Yeah, facilities, that's the one.
O&M.
That's aid, right? Not the last word. Is BOCES aid.
Yeah,
Personal, it should be
Yes.
no
it
E.
should not have,
It should not have
thank
an
you, appreciate that. I did. Sorry.
So tonight I had shared with you that we would update you in regards to a special education collaboration that we've been working on with our neighboring districts. Us, Waterview, Lee, Green Island, Hose, along with many of the other districts in the capital region, are struggling with special education placements. There just simply aren't enough out there. As I've shared with you, we have probably 5 students right now who likely should be placed in specialized programming, but there's simply no programming available. So we are programming for them the best that we can, whether it's through additional support within classrooms, and at some of the most significant cases, tutoring in lieu of self-contained special education programs. I will say Waterloo, Coles, Green Island, and many of our neighbors are facing those exact same challenges and actually have tutoring centers that are far more full than ours currently are. So knowing that we are all facing the same challenges, knowing that there's not enough placements, BOCES continues to struggle in retaining staff and being able to maintain ratios, so they're not accepting students at rates that they used to. You know, we decided to have a conversation together and say, can we work together to figure this out? Because each of us being a little bit smaller, we may not have enough students to fill an entire classroom or have the space for additional classrooms, knowing that they're 36-month age ranges. You know, can we come together as a group and work together and maybe specialize in placements and then allow for us to work together to get students into placements so they aren't in these classrooms or on these tutoring schedules that aren't really meeting their needs. So we have worked together to make this happen. Mrs. Frank really took the lead beginning last school year to start the conversation with our local districts. She took the lead for us here at Menands. And ultimately, the districts that we selected, the locations make the collaboration sensible. We are all near each other. Our hope is to be able to meet the needs of most students. One of the things that we talked about are, even if we do these collaborative programs, there are still students who are going to require private placements. Sometimes students' needs are so great that they need highly specialized placements, and we have committed as districts not to try to place students who belong in private placements in public school settings, because it simply doesn't meet their needs. But the other piece is we are going to have to pay tuition regardless. So if we're able to work together, then hopefully we can help each other build these programs and help support these programs so we can get our students into the classrooms that they require and deserve.
Can you explain Rivertown? Is that something that was brought together from you guys, or is that a program or something? Or
Suggestion that cross the river.
okay,
we were talking about.
I didn't know if it was like a programming
They
something.
just wanted to give it a name.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay.
If you have other suggestions, let me know.
I don't actually. Rivertown,
I
yeah.
think it sounds great.
So we knew here at Menands that we were going to need an additional classroom next school year. We have a group of students who are in our K2 program who are going to age out or age up into a new classroom. So we knew that we were going to need a classroom for these 5 students who will essentially be moving as 2nd graders to 3rd graders, and they will be outside of the age range. So we had started to begin that planning process last school year. So no matter what, with or without the collaboration, we would have a K2 and a 3-5 classroom. However, neither classroom will be full. And we know that there's a critical need for alternative programs. There's wait lists for all kinds of programs. I think when we reached out to Parsons, there's 18 kids on the wait list right now for different programs. I'm sure Wildwood, I think last year Wildwood accepted 1 student at the end of the year, and everybody else was waitlisted. So the lists are long, whether it's private, public schools that we used to partner with. We have a couple of students who went to North Colony. They cannot accept our students. They simply just don't have the space. Not that they don't want to, they just don't have the seats. And this includes BOCES. So we're hoping to meet the academic and social needs of the student population that is currently being underserved. So the proposal is that Menands would hold 2 primary K2 classrooms and 1 intermediate classroom. And our classrooms would primarily serve students with communication disorders or autism, depending on, you know, what their particular needs are, but the common thread would be around communication needs and some of those developmental needs. Green Island is looking to host the social emotional program for K-5, and Waterloo is looking to host the academic skills. These are our students who
Their academic and cognitive levels are such that they can't really grow and be successful in a general education program. And then last but not least, CAHOS is unable to participate in hosting programs because they're simply full. However, they would be willing to share staff. Being if we had to increase by like a half-time speech teacher, they may be able to hire the person for the other half-time. Why that is important is because when you can hire somebody full-time, the caliber of candidate tends to be much better. So if we can hire a full-time, we use them at half-time, they use them half-time, hopefully we'll get a higher quality candidate in front of our kids and create less turnover. Because even if you have somebody accept a half-time position, many times in a couple of years, they move on to something that's full-time. So the host is willing to work with the districts in that area to help maybe keep people full-time.
Can I ask, this has, right now we only have one K2, so this is two K2 and a 3-5. We have the physical space to add 2 extra classrooms here.
So that is something that we have been working through. And I think the piece that I would say and that I have shared all along is that in order to make that happen, there's going to have to be some shifts, both from a room perspective, for instructional, non-instructional, and administration. So, we would be looking at some shifts and some changes. However, we would continue to be committed to making sure that every single teacher had adequate and I would even say above adequate instructional space. We would make sure that whether it was AIS teachers or special education teachers, that they had the space that they needed to ensure that their students got what they needed. So, I think right now that we have quite a few larger rooms that maybe a couple of people are sharing, and we may break that larger room down and move them more into individual office space kind of classrooms.
So this increase on the expenditure side is staff related. We're adding special ed teachers, yes?
Yes. Which, you want to go for that? I'm going to come to that in a minute because there's going to be expenditures, but then, you charge tuition for students to fill the seats. So our hope is to provide a better instructional and social emotional programming for these students. And then ideally the tuition covers your expenditures. Because one of the things that we have said all along, whether it's us, Green Island, or Waterloo, no one is in a position to increase their expenditures. If we go into this partnership, the tuitions have to offset the expenditures. The locations need less time on us, and we are able to share resources like teachers. Like I was saying, the part-time, maybe somebody's here half-time and somewhere else half-time. This will require 3 additional instructional staff and 3 paraprofessional staff. And the additional materials and equipment for year 1, we're estimating to be at about $35,000. So what does that mean from a budgetary stance? So the first line of expenditures is exactly as you had seen on our first slide. 3 self-contained classrooms through Joanne pricing out what it would cost for that additional staff and the $35,000 in equipment. We're looking at a cost of about $485,139. The next line would be the revenues from tuitions. So those would be the seats that we would fill. And I would say right now, based on the 3 schools, the classrooms that we would be hosting here are all full. And potentially, my guess is by the time annual review comes, may have a kid or 2 on the wait list from the other districts. So we're looking at about, based on, these are estimates, right? That Joanne has worked very hard on calculating teacher salaries and benefits and things of that nature. But the revenues look like they would be about $600,000. And then revenue without fund balance remains the same. That's the same line that you had from before. And then your fund reserves. But now this time when you take a look at it, we no longer have a gap. We're looking at about a $33,000 overage at this point in time. So we continue to work with these school districts in a couple of areas. One, we have questions around transiency. What if a student leaves the program? What does that mean for tuition? Should district have to absorb the cost? I would say the benefit to the programs that we would host is there's a high demand for them. I don't think that our seats would stay open long
However, it's a risk and something that we do still have to continue to talk about. Space. Space is always going to be a concern here. If this moves forward, that is something that we will work with our teachers and with our staff on to really make sure that, one, people have what they need to serve our current students, and then two, we have the ability to host the classrooms. We would be looking at new staff, and not necessarily a challenge, but, we would want to get our postings out sooner than later once the budget is approved. We would still need to look at an intermunicipal agreement because we have to come to terms on how tuitioning works. And then last but not least, our stakeholders need to come into agreement. We are not looking at closing any classrooms. That may not be the case in other districts. So, districts need time to work with their families and talk about programs transferring, and things, or kids transferring and things of that nature. So there still continues to be work. There still continues to be work that needs to be done in this area as we meet with our colleagues and continue to try to create programs that will meet the needs of all kids. So I'm going to stop there for questions around the special education collaboration. Yes?
Try to give everyone a chance. I just don't want to speak all the time. So it's a great program, and I think it's great that we have the space and the availability to do it. First thing that comes to mind is staff, right? So we're going to host and cover the costs, but that's going to be covered by tuition from other districts. Is that what the plan is?
Yes.
If Cahoes is willing to offer staff or split, it's something like we have with our IT guy from South Carolina, we still have that person?
Yes.
So it's just a shared service, and one pays the bill or covers the cost of whoever the host person is.
I think everybody would cover their own costs, but like she said, if we need a half a person and they need a half a person, it's hard to advertise for a 0.5 job. So you could advertise for a full-time job, but they spend half a day here.
Location here, location there.
Right? So they spend, 2 days here, whatever.
Sure.
One of the districts would have to choose who's going to be that, we're going to hire that person, and like we do in South Colony, we pay them, somebody would pay us. We would invoice them and say,
Sure.
here's,
It's covered under the
correct.
that agreement. The other thing that came to mind was the cost of transportation. If districts are sending students here, it's on their district's dime or their own busing, right? We don't have buses.
Right.
So we'd have more buses in the parking lot picking up.
We'd have kids, yes, drop off and pick up, and there's potential of us to leverage some shared transportation as well. Depending on how the start plans go, and we may or may not need to contract a bus to bring kids over to Green Island if they're sending somebody to us anyway. So there may be some shared transportation. We're just not that far down.
Sure.
But yes.
But your point right there is an excellent point, Mr. Menands, because we have to think about that as far in terms of, and again, we're working through a lot of these things, and I give all the players the credit that we need to do this for the students. But that's one of the things that we have not yet talked about is the traffic coming in here in the school. So that will end up being a point of conversation as we continue to plan this.
What other impact arrival by the
I don't have any questions, but I do want to ask, I appreciate the work. It's not an easy undertaking. It's obviously something that's needed. It's a creative solution with a heavy lift attached, so it's pretty great of you guys to take it on and get it up and going. And I think it has the potential to be a great benefit to our students, especially the little ones that we have that are doing really well, right? I was here picture day and saw all of them, and they were doing fantastic. And what a difference between last year and this year for that group of kids. And it would be great if they could continue to stay with us and keep making that progress. So I appreciate it so much.
I think one of the things that is evident is every time you build a school budget, what are the ways that you can generate new revenue streams? We talked about it before. Last time we met, Mr. Menands, your comment was space, and we're going to be approaching a point in time in the next 3 years where some debt's coming off, what are we gonna do for a capital project as far as being able to house programs for our own students, and maybe something like this. It could be a revenue generator that accomplishes so much. It allows the district to maintain its own program for the students that are housed here and live here, as well as manage the students that can be served in an educational setting that they're not being served in right now. So to me, it was like, I really didn't want to go. But when you kind of sit down and kind of walk through it, it's a change. But the fact that the revenue that it can generate and pay for it and still target that needy group of students, I think is amazing. I give all the districts working on a brochure to show. Hopefully we'll have it at the next board meeting, but it's quite a collaboration.
To offset the additional revenue and put my bid in for a outdoor track. It took me 9 years to get a digital sign,
That
so
comes with your
let
building.
me-
You have to go there.
at the same
Sure,
time,
extra special ed teachers here first before we.
fair enough.
So looking ahead to our next budget workshop, we will take a look at what has changed since today. We will finalize tuition estimates and our high school and out-of-district placements. We will provide you a breakdown of departments of FTEs and salaries and benefits. We will do any pilot and revenue updates with the tax cap. We will continue to monitor and take a closer look at enrollment and staffing. And then last but not least, we will be working on our BOCES final service request, which will dictate BOCES costs into next year, with the caveat that if there are decreases, we will see changes in aid the following year, but that works both ways, whether it's a decrease or an increase. So as we end tonight, our next budget workshop is March 11th, but we would like to hear from the board and your thoughts about priorities, things that you need to see, things that you have questions about, based on this presentation and looking ahead.
Could you, sorry, I can put that again. Did you get a chance to run the tax cap, like what the tax cap would look like with the Regeneron pilot?
It's 0.33%. The numbers you saw today, I didn't make that part of the tax cap calculation. I believe it reduced it to 0.33. The levy increase, but again, by putting that in, that with the pilot piece, it means.
Right, I understand that, right, the dollars don't change, but yeah, I just didn't know, I was worried about it if it went negative. So, I think it's just this side of positive.
There's not for negative.
Thank you. Bill?
No, right, we're keeping all the programming,
Yes.
we're adding programming, it sounds like.
I'll add one more comment. As we go through this process, and most of us having done this and sat through this process many times, if the state comes, and Jen and I had this conversation, if the state comes in with additional money, if you look at everything and revenues are a bit higher, and we end up having more money that is, I shouldn't say like that. If our revenues are greater than our expenditures, we can lower assigned fund balance. And then that can be, so, you can just leave it be where it was, 800,000, or in any excess you could reduce there. If you know your revenue. That's, again, we don't know those things. So as we go through March and April and they fix the budget, we'll know.
Thank you.
All right,
Yeah,
thank
thanks.
you. If that's all the budget presentation, I think now we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session for,
I think we can make that separately.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Could I get a
Is it on there by any chance?
Yeah,
My
I think
computer.
so.
Could I get a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person? Matters dealing with the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, dismissal, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are in executive session. As I said, we do not anticipate taking action after the executive session. You are of course welcome to stay.
Are we going in the conference room or are we gonna stay here? We'll stay here.